Welcome to the Paintbrush Prairie podcast. I'm Kinsey Ashcraft, a boutique owner, firefighter wife, and mama of 2 cowgirls, homesteading on a cattle ranch in Oklahoma.
And I'm Talia Watcott, a Western artist and illustrator, mama of 2, and wife of a mountain man, raising babies in the mountains of Utah.
Together, we share a passion for the Western lifestyle, homemaking, and Indian paintbrush flowers.
We're here to inspire and encourage you as we each create a simple but beautiful life on the prairie. Hey guys, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a heads up on this week's episode. We were having a few issues with our sound on Rachel's side of the audio, so you'll notice there's a few times where her audio cuts out. We are really, really sorry for that, but that's just kind of how things go sometimes. But even though the audio isn't perfect, it is still totally an amazing episode. It's so worth it to hear everything that Rachel has to say, and her story is just incredible. So just forgive us while we have a few little errors with our audio, and make sure to listen to the episode because it's totally worth it.
Welcome to episode 4 of the Paintbrush Prairie podcast. Today we have a special guest for you, and we are so excited to introduce you to Rachel Zeigler. She is with the Parlor, also known as Zeigler Family Farms. They are a dairy farm and creamery, and a first-generation one at that, located in the Pacific Northwest. So excited to introduce you to Rachel. Rachel, welcome to the Paintbrush Prairie.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. We'll just dive right in. So, Rachel, tell us your story. I know it may be a really big, long one, but we want to know all about your operation. How did you get into farming, and why did you choose dairy specifically?
So fast forward like 10 years ago, I was a stay-at-home mom with 4 kids. At the time, our youngest was maybe a year. I was trying to figure that out last night, but we were basically just doing we're general contractors. So I don't know if you know that. We don't share too much of that on our page, but we do build houses for a living. And that's kind of how we keep the lights on. We're trying to transition into being just dairy farm only, and that's what's going to pay the bills. But at that time, we were, building houses, framing, remodels, new construction. We were kind of doing it all. And my husband got a job like 40 minutes from where we lived at. And it was a pretty large framing job. And it was for like the 3rd largest dairy farm in Washington state. And at the time, never even thought about dairy farming. Like it wasn't even
Yeah.
So my husband was raised on like 3 acres in town. I mean, he had a couple cows and a horse, but we would call that like city farmers. I mean, neither one of us kids, right? He was probably more farm than either one of us. But anyways, he took this job, and every day he would come home and he would just tell me all about the dairy farm, and he was so fascinated with it. And so anyways, at one point he was like, you've got to bring the kids up. Like, it's going to be a great field trip. They'll take us through the parlor. Like, they'll just show us everything. Right. And I had, you drive dairy farms and you see thousands of cows, and I mean, I just never really thought about it. I didn't think about the process and everything that goes into it. So we made the drive up there with the kids and got a full tour. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. But I didn't think anything of it other than it was a really cool field trip for the kids. So anyways, the house he was building was, pretty large. So he was there so it was like every day he would come home from work and he would talk about his dairy farm. And I'm like, okay, Denny, like, okay. And he's like, oh, aren't you just so sick of like construction and it's so up and down? And I know that farming is up and down, but he was born and raised in a construction family, and that's all he'd ever known. And it was, with anything, stuff comes in waves, but he really wanted something he could have maybe that was sustainable, where it was income all the time, consistent. And that's kind of where I think like the first bit of the dream of farming started for us. And so, anyways, the dairy thing wouldn't go away. And I was like, okay, Denny, first of all, we don't have any money. We don't have any dairy farming. Like, what are you thinking? So at the time we lived in this 1970s Rambler in the middle of the city too. So we were like surrounded by a development. So there was houses everywhere, but we had about a half-acre pasture behind our house. And I was like, listen, if you're not going to stop talking about the dairy farming thing, like, let's go get a milk cow, right? And this was like, I'd never been on social media. Like, I didn't even know what Instagram was. I think it was a thing at the time, but I wasn't on it. And so I wasn't looking at like I feel like everybody always talks about the ballerina farmer and the food nanny. They make milking cows look so beautiful, right? Everybody wants one. So, anyways, I say, hey, if we're gonna if we're gonna do this dairy thing, or you think you want to do the dairy thing, you need to try milking a cow. So we get on Craigslist because why not? Or I can't even. I mean, yeah, I don't remember, but we ended up finding this milking shorthorn who had never been milked and was like a full grown, like it was a full grown cow, but it had never been milked. But we're never going to find another cow for this deal. Like, let's go get it. So we pick up this milking shorthorn, and it was an absolute nightmare. So we move the cow in behind our house. We're surrounded by people, right? So you can imagine the phone calls we get because city people don't usually like cows. I don't know how many times, like, I don't know what you even call it. Like, the city patrol came through and they were like, hey, this person doesn't like the mooing, or this person doesn't like, and we couldn't touch the cow. Like, there was no milking of the cow. So I told my husband, I said, listen, we're going to sell this cow, and we got to start with like a baby cow. Like, we have to, like, a baby cow. I didn't even know that they were called heifer. I didn't know anything about it, but I was like, we got to buy a little cow, and then we'll raise it up till it's nice. Right. So we get on Craigslist again, and we find this dairy farm that has like a surplus of calves. And we go when it's 110 degrees out, with a borrowed horse trailer because we didn't have one. And we picked this calf up, and she's like 3 days old. It was 110 degrees. I swear we almost killed the thing bringing it home because it was like a 3.5 hour drive. Obviously, she was like low end of the totem pole, and that's kind of why they were getting rid of the calves. So it wasn't like good genetics. Now we know all those things, but I'm like looking back, I'm like, okay. So we go get this calf, we bring it home. We don't have milk to feed it. So we're like going to, the farm store to get milk replacer. And like I said, we know nothing. So we get this calf, we do our best to raise it up. I remember it started growing horns, and I was like, I don't want horns. And he's like, we got to go get a burner to dehorn this thing. Like, go, like, we have no experience, okay? And everybody's stupid anyway. So we're like, I remember trying to just goat rope this little calf to burn these horns off. And I'm like, you're so mean. Like, we can't do this. Like, this is awful. Anyways, it was just another really funny experience that I remember with him trying to figure out this whole dairy thing. So we get this calf, we get it up, we kind of think we know what we're doing. And Dennis is like, I want to milk some cows. Like, I don't want to be waiting, 15 months or 17 months or however many months it is till this calf, is ready to breed and have its own calf and we can milk it. So I'm like, all right, well, let's go buy some real milk cows. So again, we got on Craigslist and we found two milk cows for sale. And we went to go get one of them. And she said, I won't sell you one unless you buy the other. And I'm like, you don't understand, lady. Like, we live in the city. Like, I can't, it's like it's 2 cow limit. Like, I can't take 2 cows because I already have one at home. Dennis is like, okay, we'll take the cows. So we call his folks. His folks, like I told you, they lived on like 3.5 acres, and they agreed to take these two full size milking cows for us that hadn't calved yet, but they were gonna calve. And we really didn't have a plan, but like I said, we just knew we wanted to start it at. Um, and again, my husband would complain about work every day and just tell me all the time about how he wanted a dairy farm. And I'm like, you don't know what a real dairy farmer is. Okay. Like, you have never worked for a dairy farmer. You don't come from dairy farming. I was like, listen, we have got to find more land and some kind of like barn setup. And again, we were broke. So I just want to reiterate that we were definitely broke. So I was on Zillow and I found this, I kind of did like a radius of us because we couldn't afford land where we were at because we were in an area where, buying in the country was just unattainable for us. Like, I knew that. So we're high school sweethearts. We've been together since I was 15 and he was 16, and his folks had a cabin up north. And so I kind of drew a circle, and I knew that area kind of, but I was like, listen, if we found something 2 hours away that's kind of in the middle of nowhere, we could maybe swing it, and then you just have to commute, right? So um going in high school, as kids, and then being married, we went to the cabin all the time with his family, and we'd always go through this small town of Harrington. And I would always like, who would ever want to live here? Like, it's so just not, it's just, there's like nothing here. I never saw any people when we came through, but anyways, I knew where it was at. So I was on Zillow. I kind of drew a circle and kind of did a 2-hour distance from where we work every day. And I was like, hey, I found this farm. It's in Harrington. I know I said I'd never live in Harrington, but it has silos and it has multiple barns and it has 20 acres. And I'm like, the farmhouse is in really rough shape, but if you want to do it, like we can afford it. We can sell this house. And he's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah. So, anyways, I got him on board, which really wasn't too hard, but he wasn't too thrilled about having to drive round trip 4 hours every day to and from. But we were like, this is the only way financially we would be able to do this if we were going to do this. So we called the realtor of the listing and asked to come see the house. And she said, unfortunately, it had just sold like 2 days prior, but it hadn't been put on the Zillow yet. So I was like, are you serious? So whatever. I let it go. We move on. The 2 milk cows we had, they had not calved or anything yet. So we were in the clear. We were good to go. And then this whole desire of his to dairy farm just like would not go away. So as time went on, the cows calved and had their calves, and we just put the calves on the cows because we had them at my in-laws' house and we didn't have anywhere for them, and again did not know what we were doing. But a whole year went by, and I was on Zillow again, and that farm that we wanted a year prior was back on the market. So I was like, oh my gosh, no way. So I'm like, we got to go see it. We load the kids up. We go see it. I tell them I want it. And so we tell the realtor we want it. We hadn't even listed our house yet, but things were pretty hot on the market, right? So my realtor was like, listen, just sign the papers. Your house is going to sell. It's going to be fine. Don't do a contingency. Like, let's just keep this thing moving. So we didn't fib, but we were like, okay, fingers crossed, like this better work. So, um, we got through all like the process of the appraisal and all that stuff, went to sign papers and found out the original sale fell through because the owners were going through like a divorce or something, and she wouldn't sign off on that house, and that house sat empty for over a whole year. So I feel like the house was meant for us because it didn't sell to somebody when we thought it sold the first time, and then it came available the second time, and at the last minute it wasn't going to sell. Like our realtor said, she's decided not to sign the paperwork. And within that 30-minute time frame, we got a phone call saying that she finally decided to sign it over. And it was a fax. And we were like, all right, it's ours. So that was our first big move to start dairy farming. The house was pretty much unlivable. Thankfully, the house that we were living in sold quickly and everything went smoothly as far as like selling that to get into this. But we took the kids to the town of Harrington. We didn't know a soul. I never even checked out the school. Like I did not do my research. I just really wanted to farm, and Dennis wanted to farm. We brought the 3 cows that we had. We sold the 2 little calves, but we had the 3 cows that we originally had, and we brought them to the new farm. We had a 1980s camp trailer that we parked outside the shop at the old farmhouse, and we kind of set up like a janky little washer and dryer, and we slowly worked on that farmhouse for what felt like an eternity because it was the most disgusting, like the smell, it was horrible. But anyways, we made do because we were really excited about trying to dairy farm, and got through the whole remodeling process. Work was great down in the Tri-Cities is where we were originally from. And it came time to start working on what we called the dairy barn. And so it was a pretty makeshift barn. We YouTubed and Googled how to make like a milker. So we found this milker on Homesteader's Supply. We didn't have any money to buy it. It was like $2,500. Maybe that doesn't sound like a lot to you, but at the time we were broke. And Dennis was like, "We're gonna get a loan on this," and I'm like, "No, we're not. Like, we are not gonna get a loan on a milk." And he was like, "Yeah, no, it's great. It'll be fine." So he talked me into this milk machine. We get this milk machine from the Homesteader Supply. We get on YouTube. We find this guy in Seattle that's milking like 5 cows at a time with like this PVC setup, and the milker. I don't know if I really can explain how comical it was. But anyways, we tried to recreate that at our farm, and we did get it set up to where we were milking 2 cows at a time. We didn't get our dairy license. So basically we're just like excited to give people milk because we were actually milking cows. So we would milk cows morning and night, obviously. And the hardest part about that is my husband had to drive 2 hours to work and then 2 hours home. So with 4 little kids at home and then him leaving and then us milking in the morning and the night, it kind of burnt us out. So I told my husband, I said, listen, I said, I don't know if I really want to do this anymore. Like we're just, again, we don't have money, we don't have experience. And I honestly I don't see this happening. So I was probably not his favorite person most of the time because he's definitely a dreamer and he just really didn't want to take no for an answer. So we got rid of the cows and we just basically gave up on the dairy thing. And during that time, my parents, I don't come from money, but my parents had a pretty large chunk of property in the Tri-Cities where we were from. And they were getting ready to retire and didn't have retirement. So they were like, hey, do you guys want to develop this property with us? And my husband and I were like, okay. So basically, they put up the land with the bank, and then Dennis and I did all the infrastructure, but we didn't charge them for it. But in return, we got to build all the houses in there. So that was kind of like our turning point financially for us, where we were able to really start to make some money and put it in the bank. And I told him, I said, listen, we're not doing the dairy thing. Obviously, we're just meant to be builders. That's all we've ever known. Let's just sell the farm and we're going to move home. And so he was like, you're right. Let's do it. Put it up for sale. Didn't think anybody would sell it. And it sold in a day to like some couple out of Seattle. And I remember thinking, like, man, this was just like the worst decision ever, having to tell my kids. I mean, because they loved school and it's just such a different environment than what they were in when we were in the Tri-Cities. But it made sense to be home because we felt like, life was good, work was great. We could go home and build a really nice new house and just kind of do life right. So about a week went on and I called my realtor and I was like, is there any way to back out of this? And, she was kind of like, what? And I'm like, no, I'm kidding. Like, it's fine. It's fine. It's going to be fine. So, we moved forward with the sale of the house, but in the meantime, because we'd been there for 2 years, we had met a lot of great people here, wheat farming families, people the same age as us. And one of our friends was like, hey, like I have all this land and I have a lot of unusable ground on certain sections of some of our farms. So he's like, why don't you guys just follow me around this afternoon? I'll take you to a couple different of our farms. And then if you see like a piece you like, let's figure it out. So I was like, all right, let's do it. So we jumped in the car with the kids and we kind of toured all his properties. And so where we're at right now is the property that we bought from our friends. It's basically the worst ground possible because it's solid rock, but we got it for such a smoking deal that we couldn't have said no. So, bought the property, told our family that we're staying here. They again thought we were just absolutely nuts. Took our 1980s camp trailer, moved up to this property when it was -5 degrees out with 4 kids. The power company couldn't get to the property to get power in because there had been so much snow at the time. So the ground was too smushy, I guess. And the truck was really heavy. So we spent 2.5 months without power, with like probably the worst winter here. No power, no water. I would have like a huge propane stove thing that was outside that I would boil water on to bathe the kids, which sounds comical now because they're all big, but at the time it was okay. Like, we were doing sponge baths and we were going to our friend's house to get water in big, huge buckets that we would, like pump out. And then we had a generator that my daughter, who's now 16, she was little at the time. Gosh, she was probably like maybe like 11 or 12. They would sometimes the generator we'd forget to fill it up and we'd have to go run to the gas station, at like 10 o'clock at night while everybody was sleeping to fill it back up with gas just so we would stay warm. And I do have some really great pictures of that, but that was a really fun time. We were here building our dream house. We were trying to not use a bank because we had saved money and we made money on the sale of our farm, and we just wanted to be debt free and thought this will be great. Again, no thought of the dairy anymore. The dairy had sailed. We were just thinking we want our kids to be in a rural community, raise them here. We'll just do work. It's fine. Like, people will start to realize that we're not like bad builders, and maybe someone around here will start building houses with us, So I don't know how long it took us to finally get the house done, but we did find out mid-build that I was pregnant with number 5, which is Georgia. Using like a porter potty and no power and water and like boiling water. I mean, it was like probably the worst scenario ever. My husband was like, he was like, we have to get this house done because I'm
Yeah.
not bringing a home to this trailer. Okay. Like it was not a nice trailer.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right. So we finally got the house done. And in the midst of all that, quite a few of our friends decided they wanted to build houses. And so we just started building houses for farmers here, which was great because we were home and we do love building houses. And I feel like my husband's really good at it. And so it just was like life was good, right? And we decided at one point, oh gosh, I don't know if it was a year later, to start a shop. We get, like, because we have all of our construction equipment and we've got minis and excavators now, and we've got dump trailers. And Dennis is like, we need a shop. He's a man, like, I need a shop. I'm like, okay. So we built a shop and we built like this
That's
giant lean
great.
to on the side. And I had told him originally, I was like, I'm kind of thinking maybe I want to homeschool someday. I said, we should enclose that side of the shop for like a really nice schoolroom. Maybe the back end of it, we'll do like a workout room, whatever. And he's like, okay, great. So I get on Craigslist one night because who's not on Craigslist? And I'm just looking for stuff. And these two little jerseys pop up on Craigslist. And I'm like, Denny, I'm like, look at these jerseys. I'm like, we have land now. Like, we don't have to milk them, but like, let's go get these jerseys. And he's like, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah, let's go. He's like, all right. So anyways, we loaded the kids up. We drove almost 7 hours to get these jerseys, get them loaded up. And we're driving home. And I looked at him and I said, hey, I said, you know that big lean-to on the side of the shop? I said, why couldn't that be like our milk? Like, why couldn't that be our milk parlor? Like, it's long enough, right? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, when we get home, I said, let's just take a look at that. Let's kind of lay it out and see if we can make it work. And he was like, all right. So we get home, we get the calves, we get them all situated. And we spent the next probably 2 weeks figuring out how to make that lean to work for a dairy. And at the time, again, I mean, this was like a year and a half process from start to finish by the time we decided that this is what we were going to try to do again. Um, but it was a long process to get through the state of Washington. They're kind of tough, anyways. But on top of it, it's raw milk. There's so many more
Mhm.
regulations here. Um, but we met some great people and we had some great mentors that really helped guide us through that. But we did. We got everything ready to go. We got it all framed in, the concrete done. And I don't even think we even had it in our mind that we were going to like dairy farm, right? But we just maybe wanted to kind of have like a homesteader situation. But my husband always is thinking bigger and he's like, listen, if I do this, I want like a sunken pit. And I'm like, what are you? Are you spoiled? Like, you don't bend over. But anyways, we had the resources because we build houses. And so we did it. So we got it all like the shell, everything ready to go. We got our dairy license, but you couldn't get the seal of approval till like all the dairy equipment was in. And so Dennis kept telling me, like, hey, dairy equipment is really expensive, Rachel, like really expensive. And I was like, all right, well, let's just pray about it. We're going to just be patient. Something's going to happen. We'll figure it out. So we started looking on Craigslist. I swear, Craigslist is probably it's like the best thing ever. And I found this like old dairy farm that was like going out of business over on the west side. I called the guy and I was like in tears when we got off the phone because he was like, God sent you to me and this is so perfect and I will do whatever I can to get you guys this equipment. I will give it to you for next to nothing. Just come get it. I have so many jerseys that we just want to get rid of. And if you guys can't afford it, like we can do payment. Like he was just amazing. If you guys need to stay here, why? And we're like, okay. And Dennis is like, this is too good to be true. But we went over and sure enough, he was like an 80-year-old retired dairy vet who had a handicapped son. And the only thing that kept his son busy or happy was milking cows. So he made like like not a makeshift, but a smaller dairy for him and his son, and they would milk cows together. I think like maybe 10, which actually kind of a lot thinking about it. But we got a smoking deal on like our bulk tank and all of our equipment, brought it back to the farm, and we were like, that's when the wheels really started turning. Like maybe we can make a business out of this. Like maybe. Started kind of doing the math and got really excited about maybe trying to make this happen. But with all that being said, we still needed to put the actual equipment in. And I mean, at this point, we're spending like a lot of money, new house, the shop, We've just put a whole dairy thing in. We're buying cows. We bought equipment. Um, and Dennis is like, hey, we got to call like a dairy company, I think, to come put all this dairy equipment in because we don't know what we're doing and it has to go to code. And anyways, he's like, I don't know if we're going to be able to afford it. It's like the same thing. Like, I don't know. I feel like we just sound like really whiny people. Like, I don't know if we're going to be able to afford it. But we had them come out and they priced everything out. And I remember when I got the email, I was like, oh my gosh, like it was like, I think almost $30,000. And I'm just thinking like, wow, Denny, $30,000, like we've just been doing great about like trying to do everything on our own in time, like not getting loans, all those things. So I remember just praying about it. And I told him, I said, we'll figure it out. Like, it's going to be fine. We're going to figure it out. Went down to my parents, and remember we had did that development I told you guys with my parents, and we didn't charge them anything for. It was about a year time frame for us to get that development in for them, and we didn't charge them anything because in return we were able to build houses in there, and we made we did really well. But my parents, they really wanted to do something special for us. And so I remember going to my mom's house and kind of telling her like about everything. And she like almost started crying. And I was like, what's the matter? And she's like, oh my gosh, me and dad have a check for you guys. We just wanted to let you know that this is something that we've been holding for you, that we wanted to give you guys just to say thank you for all your hard work at the development. And I couldn't believe that it was exactly what we needed for all the dairy equipment. So I
It's
just
gonna make
remember
me
being,
cry.
I know, I was like,
Gosh.
it's doors, keep opening. It wasn't
Oh,
overnight, but it felt like things really just always kind of were working out for the dairy thing. Um, so yeah, we got that. We didn't have to go into debt to do it. But I'm trying to think where we're at with this. So we had everything set up, and my husband's ready to go buy 7 cows from the guy we actually bought all the equipment from. And he was like, really giving me a hard time. He's like, listen, when we get these cows, we have to get rid of the milk, Rachel. Like, it's a lot of milk. 7 cows is a lot of milk. And I'm like, what do you want me to do? Like, what do you want me to do? Like, I'm going to do my best on Instagram. What do you want me to so, we have quite a few grocery stores here. I know you guys probably do too, but there's a couple of different chains. But I am adopted, and I was able to meet my birth parents. Both of them, they're not together, but I did get to meet both my parents when I was in high school, and absolutely fell in love with my birth dad, which kind of shocked me because he was kind of the one I really didn't want to meet. Um, but his wife actually was in my wedding, and we're just really close now. So I remember them saying like, "Hey, if you ever need a connection with a grocery store, my brother-in-law is like the CEO of this grocery store." And I'm like, all right. So I'm like, usually I don't use those cards, but I'm going to use the card. So we made the call and he got us like an interview with this grocery store. And I just remember thinking like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like there's just everybody who never believed in us. Like we're actually going into the grocery store. So anyways, got into that grocery store, thought, really that wasn't that hard. I'm going to call another grocery store, even though I don't have a connection. And probably a couple months prior to us going into the stores with the raw milk, there was another large company actually went out of business because of E. coli, but with a pasteurized product. So it wasn't even raw milk related, but it was kind of like our little window. And we just can't believe just from that first 7 cows that we've grown to, we have 70 cows at the farm almost here.
wow.
We're not milking.
Holy moly.
I mean, we've got, calves and yearlings. I mean, we have, you know what I mean? It's like kind of spread out, but in a 2-year span, we started with 7 and we're there. And we only have, I think out of all of our breeding, we've only had 3 steers. So we've been lucky to pretty much catch
Wow.
almost every time. So that's kind of the dairy story. I'm sure there's more to it, but I feel like it was a really, it's a really long-winded story. But we got there and we made it, and we're just so thankful that it's all worked out. And we didn't have everybody laugh at us because there were a lot of people that are you guys nuts? So, and we kind of are, I think. But yeah, so that's kind of how we got into dairy farming and how we've ended up where we're at. So
I love that. That is such a cool story.
That's so awesome. I mean, you kind of have to like tell the whole story to like really understand like how impactful every single piece of it is, and like to get to where you guys are at. It's like so inspiring, especially because like dairy, because I used to raise dairy goats, And
Okay.
so I am familiar with dairy and kind of like, there was a while there where I was like, well, maybe I'll start selling milk. And then just like getting completely overwhelmed by all of the regulations and just being like, yeah, maybe not. So it's really inspiring to me that you guys just are like, yeah, we'll just go for it and figure it out. And just at how everything just kind of step by step fell in your lap. It's really amazing. All right, guys, it's time for the review of the week. So this week's review is from Flower Farming Wife. She says, so much humble wisdom shared. Listening to these two ladies every week feels just like a friend group gathering, when in reality, I'm on my commute to work. Their passions are my passions and provide so much information to those in the Western lifestyle and those entering the Western lifestyle. I'll definitely keep on recommending this podcast to all my mama friends. Thanks so much, Flower Farming Wife, for leaving us a review. We would love to get some more ratings and reviews on our Apple Podcasts. So if you don't mind, would you go over to Apple Podcasts and leave us one? It makes a really big difference, and it helps others know that our podcast is worth listening to. Head over to Apple to leave us a review.
Yeah. No, we just, like I said, we just feel like everything, it just, if a door closed, another one opened, and it never felt like we were trying to put a circle in a box. So I tell Dennis all the time, I'm like, I feel like God really wants us here where we're at because everything has just happened that way. So we're just plugging along. We're trying to grow and get bigger. And honestly, and I'm sure we'll get into this, but we're really trying to get more direct to the customers. Our original goal was to get in the grocery stores. I felt like nobody believed we were real unless we were in a grocery store. Pulling milk all day long out of your house, but I feel like, or your farm. And I just feel like no one took us seriously unless we were in a grocery store. And with that, that's been great. Like traction for us because somebody sees it in the store, tries it, loves it, tells somebody else. Obviously, social media. But right now, with us, as you guys know, we're opening a storefront in Spokane, which is really scary. But also, we're excited to get our products straight to the consumer and kind of like skip out on that wholesale because most people don't know. So, when you are in a grocery store, they require special insurance for any product. But being that we're raw milk and there's only a few raw milk provider, like it's very slim in the whole United States for people that are selling raw milk in grocery stores. And the insurance alone for us is almost $1,000 a month. So that's one thing we're like, oh, like it's just like every time I write that check, I'm like, oh my gosh, if we could get rid of it, like because we have our own farm insurance and our milk is covered, but the grocery stores require an additional. And just kind of one of those things. If we can go direct, it's just a little bit. I mean, it's a little less expensive. So, and we may because we're selling direct to you. And like I said, when we do sell direct, we do charge a little less in the grocery stores. But that's kind of the goal right now is to start getting more direct to the consumer.
I love that. And I love just you walking in obedience and faith and just seeing what God has done, just saying, it's in your hands. And if a door closes, then another one will open, and just being faithful to what He's given you. I just think that is incredible. But Rachel, on the direct to consumer, because I've looked at your website, I am wanting to get on this ice cream social shipment because my husband is dying for some of that ice cream. But I also saw
Ice
I
cream.
also saw that you're it says pending, but you're going to be bringing back the old school milk drop to your door from the milkman. I know that's what you call your husband. I love that. But I'm like, that is so awesome. Like, we live really rural, so I don't think that would happen here. But just for people in town, I think that is really, really neat to offer that service.
And that was honestly kind of like, so we build houses for a living and we just finished our fifth custom for the summer. And we both looked at each other and said, you know what, if we're going to do this dairy thing, because it's just us, it's me and my husband and our 5 kids. And it's really hard to run 2 businesses, especially when one of them is a dairy farm. So we're just kind of having faith. This next month, it's just going to be the dairy solely. But our plan was to go door to door. And we thought if we could get it to consumer that way, that would be huge for us numbers wise. But then again, I feel like the Lord just kind of comes in and changes your plans. That's why it's pending. My daughter and I were just heading to town to get a baby gift. And there's this gift shop in Spokane that I love, and I love the gal that runs it. And I was like, we'll pop by Lucky real quick, and we'll see if Tammy's there and see if there's anything cute to get this gal we were buying a present for. And they were having a huge event, and I usually look very homeless. And I was like, oh my God, I don't anybody like I must not have seen it on socials that they were having a big event, but I was like, I need to go, I need to get a gift, we're just gonna go. So I go in there, Tammy sees me, and we start chatting. And she's like, how's it going? I'm like, great. So we're just kind of talking about things. And I'm like, yeah, we've been kind of kicking around the idea about maybe getting a storefront in Spokane. But rent's really expensive, and downtown there's just so many homeless people down there, which is there's so many businesses that are really struggling with that. And Dennis and I talked, and he's like, I don't know if I want to send Jade down there when you're having to deal with these people. And so we're like, it's just not a fit for us. We wish people could come to the farm more, but we're at least an hour away from most of everybody. We're very, there's like 400 people in our town. So that's kind of out of the question. But so anyways, me and Tammy were talking, and she was like, wait, you're thinking about a storefront? She's like, oh my gosh, you got to talk to Celeste. And I'm like, okay. So within like a couple hours, I get this text message from Celeste, and she's the owner of Lucky. She also owns a bakery cocoa and a restaurant called Chaps, which is fantastic. If you're ever in like our neck of the woods, it's like one of the best farm to table. But they basically said, let's meet next week and let's get you moved into the little gas station next to Lucky. And I was like, okay. Again, my husband and I are just kind of like, we just go by you were just like, whatever. And he's like, Rachel, don't get your hopes up. Like, you just don't. This could just be something that they're just talking about. Like, we don't know like what the costs of it are. We don't know all the logistics of it. Talked with her. It was like it couldn't be more perfect. Went to the building. Her husband was down there last week and told us that the original name was Zeigler's. And so when I mean,
Oh my
I know.
gosh.
So my husband was, gosh, this is
You need
insane. And Zeigler's
You need to write a book.
it's just crazy.
Seriously.
I know. So I was like, you know what? God was watching out for us because, gas prices are expensive. Having employees is expensive. And, the milkman thing, door to doorstep, is definitely the direction we want to go. But as far as cost starting out right now, again, like we're just trying to be as smart as we can with what we have. And so we feel like this storefront is going to be our first step to trying to get our product to the consumer without having to be in the grocery store. So, and we'll stay in the grocery. I know it's convenient for people. Like if you're going, your daughter, whatever, you are out of milk. I mean, and you're in a pinch, like you're not going to drive to the other side of town to get my milk if you need it at 8 o'clock at night. You know what I mean? But it is an opportunity for us to kind of be able to have that like one-on-one conversation with customers who come in just to kind of ask us questions or at least get to know us outside of social media. So we're excited about that.
Yeah. So with that in the storefront, are you going to offer other things besides milk and ice cream, or are you just going to kind of stick with those two things? I know you have like your merch and other things like that, but as far as like consumable stuff.
Yeah, our goal is really to really bring a farm to table. So we're going to start with milk and cream because that's simple for us. But we'd like to grow to pork and beef, farm fresh eggs, all those things. We want people to come and visit us basically to get that like I want them to feel like they're at the market, like somewhere magical when they come see us, so they get excited about making their weekly trip to the parlor. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what we're hoping to grow to. And then obviously when the weather gets nice, because it's getting pretty cold here. But when the weather gets nice, open up. They've got these cool vintage doors that are like old service doors. Open them up and have some other local farmers come in with produce and different things and kind of offer, kind of like a farmer's market. But just be consistent with that, just so it's not, like people go to farmers markets, but I want people to know that they can always come to our market and we're going to have, farm to table products for them. So
That's wonderful.
So yeah.
That is awesome. I'm so excited for you. Like I'm like I'm going to have to go make a trip and like go visit cuz seriously,
We should do that, Talia. We should do that. Like one day we can like go visit our guests and just indulge.
seriously, cuz everyone has such cool stuff going on, but like I love your whole your Instagram aesthetic and your vibe, and then just like everything you show from your farm, like from the way that you decorate and like your just I know that you love vintage stuff because you show it and then like, oh my gosh, I love that. Like, oh, so cute. So I'm sure your storefront's going to be like absolutely to die for.
Yeah.
Oh, I really have like 2 days to get moved in this week. I was like, "Oh gosh, I hope everybody doesn't judge us for this first little soft opening." But again, we're just like over the moon that we get this opportunity. So I told Dennis, even if it was a paper box, I'm happy.
Well, you
Like,
never
let's
know what
go.
what a yes might lead to. It could close a door, but it could open
Yeah.
10 more. So, I think that's neat. And I saw your picture of your storefront and
Yeah.
it is so cute. So cute. So, we'll be sure to link it in the show notes and when we put our blog post up so our readers or our listeners can see that. So,
Yeah. That'd be awesome. And I tell you a funny story about you. So you own your store, and when I first moved, like when we first built this house, I ordered this like longhorn rug
yes. Yeah.
from you. It was, oh my god,
The orange one?
I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, and I didn't want to use it because it was so pretty. And then you started calling me, and then I started, you know how you go down that rabbit hole, and I'm like, oh my gosh, are you serious? Anyway, like I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. But anyways, I just everything you do and have in your store is just amazing.
Aw.
So
Well,
that's
thank you.
like I just cannot podcast right now with you. So
Well, I have to give a lot of my credit to Talia because she makes everything I have just look a million times better. So we definitely tag team on all our things. So, but yeah, social media is really cool how it can connect so many people. So
Yeah, it's really fun. Like all the different connections, you know. And Farm Girl just has connected me to so many more people, and just I can't even like. There's so many people that come to me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I love the branding you did for Farm Girl." It's like some of the most like popular the branding that I've done. So it's just fun to see how it's reached people.
I know social media, I think that's the one great thing about it is being able to just connect so many different people from all over,
yeah,
that you
Yeah.
yeah,
never had the opportunity to ever chat with or meet. But, I mean, there are some bad things to it, but definitely I've met some really great people through social media. So I love it.
for sure.
All right. Well, kind of going into your kids, obviously this is like moving kids from like being kind of more in town to like being on a farm setting is like a big transition. And it sounds like you guys, where you were living in a trailer for a little while, or, just working on your house and just doing all the building and kind of like having to be a little bit scrappy with how you're living. Can you kind of go into
Yeah.
like what it was like for your kids through that time and how, like, what it has been like to kind of watch them grow up on the farm and kind of through these different transitions?
My husband and I being builders, we've lived in 13 different houses since we've been married, or 13 different places, I should say. My children, all of them, even the older two when they were younger, I feel like we've always kind of lived in that um work mode always. Like, we find an old house, we fix it up, we sell it, or we're building a new house and then we sell it. And then like, hey, we're on a new adventure here. So my kids are pretty resilient, I feel like. I feel like we've raised them that way. So when we moved to the farm, it was just, I think everybody kind of relaxed a little bit more because I feel like living in like the suburbs or having neighbors just kind of adds a little bit of anxiety. But being here, they just thrive. I just wish more people could realize how great it is to get your kids, and there's nothing against the big cities or all that, but I just think just seeing your kids being able to ride four-wheelers when they want, or dirt bikes when they want, or to go shoot a BB gun, or just go on an adventure. It's such a great lifestyle for them. And even the schools, the smaller schools, if you're not homeschooling, it's just so different. So yeah, I think so far for us, it's been great for our kids. And it's taught them hard work. And these kids that they help us with everything. They feed the calves, they milk, they deliver, they bottle. So yeah, I feel like the farm has just been great for them. They miss out on a lot of things that they would have been able to do if we were still living in the Tri Cities. We don't do sports, and I don't even feel bad about it, honestly. But sometimes the older kids kind of give us crap. But other than that, if we do leave or go somewhere, even if it's for a vacation, which is, pretty few and far in between. Everybody's really happy to just get back home, honestly, even if it is a dairy farm, and everybody sometimes feels like they're suffering every day because, they're a huge part of it. It used to be all of us milking together every day, morning and night. And the kids bottle, they deliver. I mean, they help us do everything. And Dennis and I finally realized that we needed to kind of separate that. So we do give the two older kids the mornings off from milking, but they do come out around 5:30 to start chores and whatnot. But I think all of that has just taught them to work hard. And if you're sick, like after you milk, if you're still sick, then you're sick. Or after you feed calves, if you're still sick, you're sick. So we're just trying to teach them to be a lot more tougher than most
Mhm.
of the kids their age are these days. And
Amen.
even if they don't dairy farm, no matter what they do in life, right? It can't be any worse than what we're doing right now. So they should be able to survive and hopefully be really good at whatever it is they do. So that's kind of what we're, for us, it'd be great if this made a lot of money for generations to come. But if it doesn't and it ends with us, we really just want to teach our kids how to work hard and have good character and how to just, I don't know, if you want to do something, figure out how to do it no matter what it takes, as long as you're doing it the right way. But, that's kind of where we're at with the kids and farm. So, yeah.
I love
So
that.
I just wanted to jump in real quick and just tell you how much I love like watching the videos of your kids. I think they're so sweet, and it's just especially like the ones of your daughter Jade, right? That's her name, right?
Okay. Yep.
So she like it makes me laugh because I mean in a good way because it kind of reminds me of like when I was that age, I was like dying. Like I wanted animals so bad. And when I got my first goats, I was 17. And so I was like doing everything. I wanted to be involved in everything. Like it was just like my little project. But I love watching the videos of her because she's just like so into it. And you can tell that she likes it and she has a passion for everything that you guys do. And yet she can still turn around and be completely girly and beautiful and like just a regular, 16-year-old girl. Like you would never see her on the street and be like, oh yeah, that girl, like she, lives on a dairy farm. But like, I just love that. And I just like, that's kind of like what I hope for my daughter, just to like be able to be really tough and resilient in certain situations and then still be able to be soft and feminine and, just the stuff that she can learn
Yeah.
from doing hard work like that. I don't know. I just think it's so, so cool.
Yeah. No. And, they're kind of learning with us too. So, Jade's kind of like her dad's right hand gal. And like I said, she knows how to deliver calves. And I think she knows a lot more than even I know. So we're thankful that Jade loves it as much as she does, and she's willing to kind of like put up with this because they don't have a choice. But she does. Most of the time, she has a pretty good attitude about it. So all of our kids really do. But I know there's days where I do feel bad. I told Dennis, I'm like, man, they don't have a choice in this, and it's a lot of work. And we can't do it without them. And so we're hoping that someday this is something that we can kind of just, that's another goal for us is just to have something that we can hand to them, that their kids can work on. We didn't get that, and we're just thankful that we have the opportunity to try to do that for them. So being first generation kind of stinks, but also we kind of get to do the things we want to do, how we want to do it. But also really hoping that we can kind of pass the torch and one of them will want to do this. We'll see. I don't know.
Good odds.
I hope so. We have five, right? One of them's got to say yes, right?
Yeah.
At, at least one of them,
I hope
surely.
so.
But to piggyback off of that, what are some of the most impactful lessons that you've learned personally for yourself or your husband with being a first generation farmer? Because like you said, you had no idea what you were doing. You didn't grow up in this lifestyle, and you have literally just had to YouTube and
Yeah, really,
Google and
really.
figure things out for yourself.
Seriously,
And
YouTube is a
yeah,
lifesaver, I tell you. Um,
yeah, and perusing
yeah,
Craigslist and
Craigslist is a good. Facebook Marketplace is getting pretty good too, though. Honestly, my husband and I were talking about this because, like, hey, you got to help me figure this out. Like, what am I going to say? And for both of us, basically, it's just never give up. Always figure a way to figure it out. That's probably the most what is the lesson we've learned, impactful lessons, is that there's always a way. You can't give up. It's just, it's never easy, no matter what. So just figure it out. So for us, I'd say that that's kind of the mentality around here. So because it's not easy, and we want to give up most days, or at least I do. but um, but you just got to figure it out and find great people. We've met some really amazing farmers along the way that have been just great to us. And it's crazy because Dennis, really sometimes he thinks like, man, it would be great to be, a huge dairy farmer and have 1,000 cows or whatever, 5,000 cows. I mean, and we know people with like 21,000 cows. Like it's crazy. But
Wow.
there are so many large dairy farmers that come to us and say, "You're so lucky you're doing what you're doing. Like if I could, I wish I could do this." You get to put your name on a bottle of milk that you guys, you milk the cows, you put the milk in, and then you take it to the store. Like we don't get to do that. So it's kind of one of those things where I don't know, the grass sometimes isn't always greener, right? So just got to be thankful for where you're at and what you're doing. But we've met some great people, and I would say for an impactful lesson, just never give up and find people, surround yourself with people that are willing to kind of give you great advice. So that's what I would say. So yeah,
Well, and I love that your kids are seeing their parents do really hard things. And even if, they don't all want to do it, one of them might, but all of these lessons go beyond the dairy
yeah,
for them. And so I think that is just, it's really cool, as well as, walking in faith and applying that to any area of your life. So I love that.
And it's also inspirational, I think, for them to see just that drive and determination, and just not being like, even when times are hard, it's like, don't let fear get in the way,
right,
right?
right.
Like just kind of go for it, and like you said, just figure it out. And that
Oh,
is
wow.
I can't tell you how many times I have to say to my daughter in a day, like, you can figure it out.
Right.
Just try. Like, I know you can do it. I know you are capable. Just figure it
Yeah.
out. So,
And we aren't soft. I kind of feel bad. I'm kind of rough around the edges. I'm not one of those like lovey-dovey moms. I mean, that sounds terrible, but I'm kind of like, you're tough. Like you'll be fine. Like it's okay. You'll be fine. Same thing, same mentality. You'll figure it out. It'll be good. It's fine. So
that's awesome.
Here at the Paintbrush Prairie, one of our favorite ways to preserve food is through canning. We talk a lot about it here on the podcast, and we are so excited to share a company with you that we absolutely love and are excited to partner with as homesteaders and homemakers. 4 Jars USA is a family-owned canning lid company. Their canning lids are crafted with utmost care using high-quality metal that resists bending, ensures durability and longevity. To combat the common issue of rusting, they have incorporated stainless steel into their lid composition. Compared to conventional lids with a thickness of 0.10 to 0.12 millimeters, their lids boast a superior metal thickness of 0.18 millimeters. They personally subject their lids to rigorous testing, ensuring their exceptional performance under pressure and during water baths. They stand behind the reliability and strength of all of their lids. Additionally, 4 Jars lids feature high-quality food-grade silicone that effectively prevents leakage, allowing you to confidently preserve your favorite homemade dishes. With their lids, you can savor the authentic taste of your beloved foods for extended periods. We are proud to support and partner alongside 4 Jars USA as an affiliate for their canning lid company. You can use our code PAINT10 for 10% off any order at 4jars.shop.
All right. So, you've kind of really gone in depth on your business and what you've got going. So, where do you kind of see it in like 5-10 years? I know you're opening your storefront and things like that. Do you have anything in mind, or you're just kind of letting it see where
kind of see where
what
it goes.
happens?
Yeah. There are so many people that we've been able to get, milk to, even on the west side a little bit. Right now, it doesn't work out for us to make that trek over there. But I think over time, if we can grow, we would love to have a couple different storefronts. That way, we're able to kind of just narrow down our milk to our actual stores. And so, like, we kind of have little stores everywhere. Is kind of, would be a great dream. And then also the milkman, door to door milk delivery. And then obviously shipping ice cream. If people will still buy it, I'm down to ship it out. So I'm like, I got to get it in the hands of someone big. Like, can I send it to Joanna Gaines? I don't know. Can I send it to Dolly Parton? I don't know if they'd ever even open it. I don't know. But like, we just kind of think that would be crazy. And we're dreamers. So we're always kind of trying to come up with something else. So I'm sure something will evolve. And our biggest thing is this next year is going to be scary because we're just having faith that the dairy is going to work. Maybe the numbers don't work out, but hopefully they do. And we're not living in a paper box or that 1980s camp trailer ever again. So ever again. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're thinking things might go. So
Awesome. Well, you have such a beautiful aesthetic. I love following you on Instagram. I love your videos, and I love just how you market the parlor because it's different. Like you still have your rural flair and the agriculture aspect, but it's like it's pretty. And I love I love just looking at your post. Like when you
yeah.
were doing your fall festival and then you built Georgia's Playhouse and I was just like, man, I wish I was close. I want to come visit and hang out. But where so
Oh God.
so
You can come whenever you want. You
so
can stay
where
at
do you
Georgia's
get your
Playhouse.
inspiration? Where do you draw a lot of your ideas from for not only the parlor, but just your place and your home? Like your home is absolutely beautiful too. So where do you get your inspiration from?
Thank you. There's quite a few gals I follow, obviously, on Instagram, but I just always, from day one, wanted to build a brand where people like felt drawn to it or wanted to be a part of it. And our hope was always that we were as authentic as we could be. Sometimes it does look prettier than it is in real life. But I try to
Of
be
course.
as authentic as I possibly can. So when people do visit the farm, they're not saying like, "Oh, she kind of made this up." You know what I mean? Or she really got that angle. But there's so many great people on Instagram that I follow and I get inspiration from. And then again, I'm like a huge junkie for vintage things. So I just kind of try to bring that aesthetics. And I had a mom who was like addicted to every magazine you can think of. Like before Instagram, there was like magazines and you would just sit. And I just have always kind of been drawn to that kind of stuff. And so yeah, I guess that's, kind of where it is. And this isn't even, related to that question, but I feel like so many people are so in love with Ballerina Farmer. And she's been honestly great for us in the fact that she's making
Yeah,
raw milk not look scary. I mean, because there's such a stigma
Mhm.
on raw milk, right? But also like when we have events out at the farm, I shouldn't say events, but like we've had a couple like cow classes. There's so many people that want to get a milk cow, and I have to remind them like, hey, Instagram is Instagram. It's not
yeah.
always what it seems. Okay,
Mhm.
so okay, you want a milk cow, and that seems wonderful, right? But you got to remember, you got to do it every day or twice a day. And Ballerina
Yep.
Farmer, I don't know how many times her cows had mastitis. And I'm just thinking, like, just like stop, stop looking at all the pretty, and really just realize that this isn't as I mean, it is amazing, but it also is a lot of work. And but again, she's been a huge part of, I think, helping us grow a little bit because there's so many people that follow her and follow the food nanny and see that they have milk cows and they drink raw milk and it's okay. So they're also two great people that I love to follow. But yeah, so I'm trying to think of some other ones. I have a great friend, Kristen with the Curated Farmhouse. I don't know if you follow her at all. She's a great one. And then Brittany with the Highlanders. Do you follow her? I feel like a lot of people follow her. She's got the cool Highlander cows. And she actually doesn't live too far from us, but she's another great gal that I love following and I love getting inspiration from her too. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, and I love your merch too. Like I keep looking. I saw that you have hats on your website, but I'm like, I want a sweatshirt. I want a
I'm pretty
t-shirt.
sad
I
on
want some
my website.
hats.
Don't even I don't have time to do that stuff
Like
on there, but oh my gosh.
when is this stuff going to be
I don't
available?
know.
Because I want to order.
I know everybody's like, come on, Rachel. I'm like, I'm sorry.
It takes a lot of effort and a lot of work
Oh
to
gosh,
get stuff
it
going, but
does. And then I do put it up there and then I got to ship it. And it's just like, it's like, I'm terrible. I need someone to come work for me, really.
Well, like you said, Instagram, it's such a highlight reel, because people really don't understand all the little tiny details that go behind the scenes that you don't really share. You don't have time to share it. So,
And also this
Yeah.
isn't even a question you asked, but the same thing. There's so many people I follow on there that never touch on the fact that there are so many of us on there that are doing farming on a smaller scale, and they make it seem um, like, I'm trying to think of what the word is, like, and I'm not saying like it's not obtainable, but people don't realize how expensive it is, to have Jersey cows or to have the Highlanders. And a lot of times people don't realize that like us, we're working a regular job just to kind of make all of this kind of come together. And they're kind of like, oh, she milks these cows. And they're, like, no, like we're hustling behind the scenes, doing all these things to try to make sure that this is all working
Mhm.
out the way it is. And I know that's the case with other people, just kind of that cost breakdown of how expensive it is to feed. But it's just things are so much more expensive than people realize they are, even on a small scale. If you're buying just like one Jersey cow, I mean, and I don't know for goats, but like, there's that expense there that a lot of people don't always talk about. So, and that's something I wish that I, probably should be a little bit better about. But I know that that's a lot of things that go on Instagram, is they kind of portray this stuff to be mm, easily
It's
obtained.
full
You know what I mean?
time.
So,
Yeah. Oh, I understand. I mean, like for our operation, like my husband's a full-time firefighter, but we also have our
right.
cattle and we have horses and all
And
kinds
it's
of animals
expensive.
that we still have to have another
Yes.
income just to help provide for
Right.
this one. So there's lots of responsibility to have an operation. Not everyone can just do
Right.
it by
Yeah.
itself. So,
Well, I feel bad. I just feel bad for some people out there that are just like, they're selling everything ready to get into this, and they don't really realize the extent of either the work or the financial side of the thing, the financial side of it. So, and sometimes I think like other big time people, sometimes they portray that to be a little bit easier than it maybe is. And I wish, I mean, there should be more of us that are saying like, hey, this is really expensive, or, like, hey, this takes way more time than you think. You don't realize they have people helping them in the background that you don't see, and all these things. But so yeah, so that's kind of my little rag at the end of this. Sorry. But it's
No, I think it's definitely good to just be open and like realistic about it, right? Like you're not trying to, you know, poo-poo anyone's like goals or dreams, right? But it's like, but really dairy is probably one of the most intensive operations because of the milking, and then on top of that, like handling the
right,
milk and having all the equipment, like especially at a, your scale where you are, doing some commercial stuff with it. It's like you have to have all that equipment and that, and just meet
right,
all the regulations and all of that stuff. That's like a huge undertaking. So I think it's good to be open about that stuff. So if someone does
right.
want to get into it, they know kind of what to
Yeah.
expect. So
Yes.
well, is there anything else that you would like to touch on?
I don't think so. I think you guys covered it. I'm sorry if I was very long-winded, but I really
no,
enjoyed
it was
sharing my
great.
story. And I've never actually got to share our story. We've kind of like touched on it a little bit in stories here and there. And so I'm excited to have a place to say, hey, like, if you want to know our story, go here. You'll get the full, I don't even know how long this is, probably an hour. So anyways, but
It's
yeah, no, I
perfect.
loved it, and I really appreciate you guys having me on. And yeah, so thanks again. And I'm going to be sure to send you both ice cream boxes. So when we get off, send me your email, like send me your addresses. I'm serious. The next time we send out an ice cream box, you're going to get some.
I'm so excited.
That'll be
We
great.
love ice cream. Well, Rachel, can you tell us real quick before we get off here, where our listeners can find you on social media, your website, any places that we can connect our listeners to you?
Okay, so I am on Instagram, and my name is Rachel Zeigler underscore Milkhouse Market. And our website is linked at the top of that, but I think it's, oh, see, like I don't even know what our website's called. I think it's
It's okay. We'll
yeah,
put
I
it in
think
our
it's the
show
Milkman
notes.
Parlor House. I don't know, but you can find it from our Instagram. So yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you.
Oh, and I have to tell you, sorry to interrupt,
No,
Kinsey.
it's okay.
Um, I was I was looking at your Instagram and I'm like, they need a YouTube
I
channel.
we talk about this all the time, but like, And my husband does not do social media at all. Like never, ever, ever, ever. But he is obsessed with YouTube and he watches like 5 main farm guys, right? And I always tell him, I'm like, you got to get on YouTube. But he just, I don't know, it always scares him, like the editing and all that. But, I'm like, hey, it could be the big break,
Just start
right?
just start filming, and then you can figure the editing stuff out. It's not really that
Not that.
tricky once you
Figure it out.
figure it out. But I was like, man, she's got such good Instagram, and I know that you guys are on TikTok too.
Well, my
right?
daughter is.
Or
She's
at
like
least
big,
your
but
daughter
I was
is.
doing really good on Instagram till she got on TikTok and then like blew up. And now basically I'm a nobody in our household. I'm like, okay, Jade. Okay. But no, we do. We need to get on YouTube and kind of figure that out. I think that would be really fun and kind of give my husband an opportunity to kind of put his face, because actually he's really good at it. So I think if I gave him a camera and gave him free reign, he would do pretty good at it. So yeah.
Like the Milkman.
I would
The Milkman
watch
Diaries.
every video.
No, that could be the name right there, the Milkman Diaries. That could be a hit.
Yes.
Oh, awesome. All right. Well, I think we are going to wrap up this episode, but thank you so much again for being on, and we are so excited to keep following.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Paintbrush Prairie podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you don't mind, would you please leave us a rating and review?
This will help more ladies find us, and it will help us make the show even better. If you know a fellow Western homemaker who would enjoy the podcast, will you please share it with them?
If you'd like to support the podcast, you can become a patron at patreon.com/paintbrushprairie. You can follow us on Instagram at paintbrushprairie.
You can find me, Kinsey, on Instagram at _farmgirl and my blog, farmgirlblogs.com, to see what I'm up to on the ranch, Western home inspiration, or subscribe to my meal plan subscription at farmgirlblogs.com/hayfield-meals. You can also shop for unique Western goods at my rural boutique and general store, farmgirlboutique.com.
You can follow me, Talia, on Instagram at The Pinion Range or my Western art page at Wapiti Sage Design. You can also purchase my artwork or book a custom piece at wapitisagdesign.com. I also blog over at thepinionrange.com, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel where I share the behind the scenes of my life as a Western artist and homesteader.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. See you next time from the Paintbrush Prairie.